Thank you, Acting Speaker, and it's always a pleasure to contribute after the member for Clarinda. And I rise to also contribute to the Justice Legislation Amendment Police and Other Matters Bill 2022. The bill introduces a range of amendments to the Victoria Police Act 2013 and the Sex Offenders Registration Act 2004, including but not limited to allowing Victoria Police to recover costs from the organisers of large commercial events for policing services in the area surrounding the event. And for example, traffic control services that may be surrounding those suburbs. And I know in my experiences within the ambulance industry, for major events and for large commercial events, the ambulance service have a check sheet in regard to the safety requirements and the provision of ambulance services in regard to these larger organised events and those organisations that seek assistance from not only the police but the ambulance service have to meet certain standards, and the ambulance service determine even the resources that they require at those events. And in most cases, paramedics will be called in on overtime to do some of those events, or if they have spare paramedics on reserve. And it can be quite a costly exercise to the ambulance service, and I dare say to the Victoria Police, and that's why this is a good measure to try and retrieve some of those costs and recover those costs. So this bill also provides for police and protective service officers with powers to protect the security of police premises, including requiring a person to provide a reason for their presence, asking a person to leave and not return if they do not have a legitimate reason, and removing or arresting them if they do not leave. And clearly there would be people that have seen this occur. Again, I know in my experiences as a paramedic, I've seen this happen many times around a police station where you may have some person that arrives at the police station and basically makes a nuisance of themselves, and the police try to do the best thing and by convincing that person to move on, but in some cases common sense doesn't prevail by the individual, and the police have to take a greater action in regard to that person and dealing with that person. The bill also establishes a legislative framework for the restorative engagement and redress scheme. It provides transparency about eligibility for the scheme and protects the privacy of participants. It amends the Sex Offenders Empowerment, the Chief Commissioner to direct or permit a registrable offender to report to police electronically if a state of emergency, state of disaster or pandemic declaration is enforced, and require registered offenders to provide improved information. It also clarifies that the offence, sexual assault of a person with a cognitive impairment or illness, is a Class 2 offence when committed against a child, or any person who commits this offence is automatically a registrable offender and subject to reporting requirements. And of course it lists the Commonwealth offence of using a carriage service to prepare or plan to engage in sexual activity with or procure for sexual activity persons under 16 as a Class 2 offence, and any person who commits this offence is automatically a registrable offender and subject to the reporting requirements of the Act. Of course, the amendments in this bill are necessary to address gaps and provide clarity, including, for example, clarification of existing PSO powers, and to ensure police have the powers they need to keep their members and members of the community safe when attending a police premise. Acting Speaker, I'd like to take this moment just to acknowledge the police in my electorate, the Melton Police, and in particular the Area Command, for the fantastic work that they do throughout Melton and within the community, not only keeping us safe but also dealing at the community level and being engaged with many community programs, whether that be through community groups, through the schools, and just through youth groups and engaging with the youth. And I can't thank them enough for the tireless work that they do, and even more so over the last 2.5 to 3 years during the pandemic, where it's been difficult for everyone, but in particular it's been very difficult for the police. But also not only the Melton Police, as the western part of my electorate at Bacchus Marsh. Again, I can't extend my appreciation enough to the Bacchus Marsh Police dealing with such a big area and a wide range of issues, but it's the way that they deal with the community. It's a way that they even deal with offenders, and the professionalism of our police is amazing. So to both Melton and the Bacchus Marsh Police, I thank you, and in particular, as I say, for what's happened through the last 2.5 years of their tireless efforts. This bill also contains amendments which deliver on commitments and drive proactive initiatives, including establishing a legislative framework for the restorative engagement and redress scheme, and to support the need for Victoria Police to better determine and recover costs for services they provide at large-scale for-profit events. And I know Wayne Gatt and the Police Association has been closely consulted on the amendments set out in this bill, and they support the amendments, and in particular welcome the actions of the government to provide police with the powers they need to ensure police premises continue to be safe for both police and members of the community. The community legal centres and the Victorian Aboriginal Legal Service have also been consulted on the development of the bill. Community safety is a key priority of the Andrews Labor government, and that is why we have invested a record $4.5 billion in Victorian Police since coming into office. And that's to ensure that police have the powers, the resources that they need to keep the Victorian community safe. Of course, this government, the Andrews Labor government, makes no apologies for supporting a well-resourced police force. It's essential to providing a safe environment for our state in how it tackles serious and organised crime and the threat of violent extremism. This bill will deliver important amendments to the Victoria Police Act 2013 and the Sex Offenders Registration Act 2004. And these amendments are designed to keep the community safe, clarify a number of provisions and protect the privacy of participants of the restorative engagement and redress scheme. And of course our record is one of backing police and delivering on our commitments to Victoria Police and the Police Association. And it's always better to work with the representative bodies of our service industries, police, ambulance, fire. It makes it a lot easier. We get a better outcome for the whole of the Victorian state in regard to our service and emergency service industries. It is what we have always done and what we will continue to do. The government is clear on its stance on policing and community safety. Since being elected in 2014, we've provided the resources, the tools and powers that police need to keep the community safe. We turned around police investment with the policing budget 63% higher than what it was in 2014. So throughout this term of government, we've invested a record $4.5 billion in new funding for police, including funding for an additional 502 police officers and 50 PSOs in the most recent budget. This investment is building on the 3,135 new police officers already on our streets, which includes general duty police officers working in local communities, but also specialist officers, including hundreds of family violence police officers, and we know what the family violence situation is like in the state, in particular out of the pandemic, so it's essential that we have these specialised family violence police officers. So we've worked with the Force Command on developing this recruitment pipeline, which included the development of the staffing allocation model, a sophisticated model that assists police to guide police resourcing needs. One of the issues are that it's a matter of fact to point out that the relationship between the former government and Victoria Police Command was not a happy one. And the governance issues in 2012-13 that plagued the relationship between the executive arm of the government of the day and Victoria Police are well documented. So reports such as the Rush inquiry tabled in this Parliament documented all of that for everyone to revisit if they wish so. But our government is focusing on what matters, providing Victoria Police and PSOs with the resources and powers they need to keep our community safe. And we know that each and every day Victoria Police members perform the vital work needed to keep Victorians safe, and we acknowledge this work and we thank them for it. This bill is an important piece of legislation that covers a wide range of issues facing policing in Victoria, and I thank the Minister and his staff for his work on this bill. I support these reforms and I commend this bill to the House, and I thank the Victorian Police. Thank you.